Hey, what's up guys, Alex here. Thank you for checking this video and welcome to the episode number 32 of the series of tutorial on how to build a premium theme for WordPress. Welcome again. This is the part 2 of the tutorial about Ajax and asynchronous loading. If you didn't follow part 1, I strongly suggest you to go back of one video and check the entirety of the video and learn how to create a load more button to while you click it, it's gonna load automatically more posts. If you don't want to watch this video, you can always download the updated code in my GitHub repo, but I really, again, strongly suggest you to check that video. In this lesson, we're going to improve the overall user experience of this button. First of all, we want to give a response to the user, so maybe a loading animation of this icon. We want to remove the ability to click this button if the system is still loading and still retrieving posts, and we want to implement the appearance of these posts in a better way. First of all, we have to style a little bit this button maybe in a proper way and apply our own custom style. So let's do that. Let's remove all the bootstrap declarations of this button. We don't want to use a generic button, but I want to use a custom class called button sunset load. So we can copy that. And inside here, let's do a small separation. Let's use 2 span tags and we're gonna see why later, but first of all it's gonna be the container. The first span tag is the container of the icon, the spin loading icon that we have. The second one, we want to just use span class, and we can use a generic class called just simply text because it's the text that it's contained inside the A tag. And just as a generic advice, when you use an A tag and you have to insert other tags, other HTML tags inside an A tag, a link, I always suggest you to use a span tag because it's an inline tag and it's not a block tag. So it's not gonna create any issue to our A class. But we're gonna change a little bit this stuff. Let's save it. Let's grab this button sunset load. Let's access our SAS file. And here we can start coding a new section. So let's copy the section title here and let's use Ajax loading options or Ajax loading, and we're gonna collect all our Ajax loading options here. So let's display block. This one, I want a width of 200 pixel and I want a color of dark gray. So let's go like maybe 222, like almost black, but I like it that way. And let's go a font size of 50 pixel. Let's do it pretty big. Let's check how it looks in our front page here. It's pretty massive, so we can resize a little bit. We can style a little bit better this stuff. So let's go 30 pixels. Yeah, that's good. And overall, I like this color, but I'm gonna apply a small animation here to make it more interactive. So let's go 30 pixels. Let's align its center. So margin 0 auto. And then this is gonna be center align, perfect. So one thing that you notice, even this is an A tag, so it's a link. If we go and roll over, we don't have the usual cursor because we don't have any href attribute inside the A tag. So if an A tag is missing the href attribute, we're not gonna have the cursor. We have to force the use of the cursor on this element by simply stating in cursor pointer that it's the type of cursor that you have when you go and roll over on a link. So now we have the pointer. Another thing that we want to do, we want to create a little bit of animation. So let's say that this one starts at opacity 0.7. And then when we go, always using SAS, on rollover or on and focus, we go opacity 1, and now we have to implement the usual mixin that we always used to animate. So in this case is the animate mixin, and let's declare that we want to just animate the opacity. And that's perfect. Save it. Let's go back here. Let's refresh. And now we have a small, nice animation. Let's give more opacity of this one. It's like not enough. So let's go 0.5. Yeah, way better. More visible, more clear that this is a rollover animation. So let's go 0.5. Now, the other thing that I want to do, I want to stack the icon and the text. And that's where it comes useful, having these two elements inside these two separated tags, these two span tags, because I could, of course, usually or simply put a breaking tag, like a BR breaking tag, to force this text to go on another line, but this is not really good. It's something that we should avoid to do. And if we have the ability to manage this stuff in CSS, it's always better to do it in CSS than actually hard coding in HTML. So let's do this in a super simple way with CSS. So inside our button sunset load, we want to force all the span tags inside this button to act as a display block. And that's it. Simply, but just by forcing the two span tags to act as a display block, these two tags are gonna span for 100% and are gonna be a block, like a solid block. So they're not gonna be aligned one close to another, but they're gonna stack automatically. We can manage, we can edit, we can update this functionality dynamically in CSS without having a breaking code inside the HTML. So this is really useful. Another thing that I wanna do, I wanna now create some nice transitions, some nice interactions. First, if I click on load more, I wanna deactivate, I wanna hide the load more, deactivate the clickability of this button, because I don't want a user to like click 3-4 times in a row the load more while maybe it's still loading. And then I want to animate this icon to maybe spin for the amount of time that our loading process in the backend, our Ajax, is retrieving the post. So let's do that. Let's access our JavaScript file where we handle all our Ajax interaction inside our sunset.js. Here we have the document on click the sunset load more, that it's actually the button that we are clicking. So before doing anything with Ajax, we can dynamically update the style and the look and feel of the button. So first of all, we have the det that we can use, that it's really useful. So let's just write det. First, let's add a class called loading. And that's it. So now that if we notice here, let's refresh. Now here, if we select the button, we don't have any loading class. If we click, now this button has the loading class. This is really helpful because with this loading class, we can prevent the action of clicking the button again until this loading class is still there, if we didn't remove the loading class. And to do that, we can update the selector of jQuery by using simply CSS. So by writing column not, and inside the simple brackets, we specify the class that doesn't have to be loading. We are saying that this document click action, this document click trigger, has to be activated only if the sunset load more doesn't have a loading class applied to it. Let's test it out. So let's refresh it. We start with no loading class. We click and we load 2 more posts. Now this button has the loading class. So if we click, nothing happens. See, we are not loading any more posts. So we're blocking the user to click again multiple times and causing maybe an issue or something else until the loading class is in place. To remove this class, we can do that inside the success declaration, a success function return of the Ajax, because inside the success, we are pretty sure that our loading options of all the posts, it's done, and we are already appended all the posts. So we can easily and simply just that remove class. Of course, if we try, this is gonna be really quick. Keep your eyes here. We can load more, loading, boom, and the loading, it's already gone. Let's do it again. Loading, and it's gone, because of course I'm on a local machine, so the loading process is really quick, and I'm loading all the posts basically in less than a second. Is just really hard to catch, but you know what I mean. And with this loading option, we can also update a little bit whatever options we have in the CSS. So for now, just remove this removing class of the loading, so we can maintain the loading class active on our button, and we can see what we are actually doing. Inside the SAS file, inside this SCSS file, we can also implement here another declaration with ampersand loading. So we're saying that also, other than on hover and on focus, if this button sunset has, without the column, sorry, if this button sunset has the class loading applied to it, the opacity has to remain to 1. It doesn't have to go back at 0.5. So we can check that. Let's refresh, click, and now as you can see, even if I click outside, I go and roll over, this remains on full opacity, so just 1 opacity, and that's good, so we can control this. The other thing that I want to control, I want to remove the cursor pointer, because I don't want to give the maybe illusion to the user that that element is still clickable. And of course, I don't want to put it inside this declaration here, because I don't want to remove the pointer on rollover, so I have to just copy again this declaration and put it outside. This is not a bad practice, and so you can redeclare the same class multiple times inside another class, and automatically SAS during the compiling process gonna take care of creating the proper declaration. It's not an error, it's not a mistake like redeclaring the same class with different options. Absolutely. So here we want to put a cursor default, that is the default cursor that we have. So let's refresh. Now we don't have the loading class applied, so the opacity is working. We have the pointer, we click, we have the loading class applied, this opacity is 100%, and then we have the arrow here. So this element, visually from a user experience perspective, from like a user interaction, is not clickable anymore, because we don't have the cursor, the pointer, and is not creating any interaction of transitions of the opacity, and this is really good. Now we have to remove the load more text, maybe hiding, and then animate this pin for the amount of time that is gonna take to our script to load the next post. So let's go back here and let's do something again in the JavaScript. So other than adding the class loading, we can keep going with the same function, because we can, jQuery works in a cascading way. So it starts from the left and keeps going to the right. So we can add more declaration if what we have to do is always inside the same container, the same parent container. We can keep going with whatever we want inside the same declaration, the same row, without specifying other stuff. So here we can put a dot to declare anything, and then we have to find, that's what I'm interested into, we have to find a class inside our det declaration, that in this case is the sunset load more. So inside the sunset load more, I want to find that text class, that if you remember, I applied this span class that doesn't really style anything, is not necessary for CSS, but it gives me the ability to wrap the text that I want to hide, that I want to animate inside this text class, that then in JavaScript with jQuery I can find inside my button. So finally, when I find these text, what I can do, I can just use a pre-built animation of jQuery called slide up. And the slide up accepts a declaration of timing in milliseconds. So let's put 320, because we're always using inside also our CSS, we are using 320 milliseconds. So we keep the speed pretty much consistent throughout all our animations. So let's save it. Let's go back our front end, refresh, and now check this out. Click, boom, the load more disappeared. So we are going an extra step. We remove the load more. The other thing that we have to do, we have to animate the spin icon. And to do that, I'm gonna do pretty much the same thing here. So I'm gonna use that here, and I'm gonna search for the class called sunset icon, and I'm gonna add class called spin. Be careful, because in jQuery, if you add or remove classes, you don't have to put the dot. But if you're searching for a class, you have to put the dot. If we go back in our front end, we refresh, we click again, and we check in our source code. Now we have the loading that it's affecting both opacity, interactability, we cannot click anymore, and it's animating the display none of this loading and slide up with a nice animation. Plus, we added this spin class to our sunset icon. And now we can apply with CSS, simple CSS, an animation, a spinning animation to the spin class. So let's go back in our editor. Let's access our Sass base folder and let's open a mixin. It's not really a mixin, but we're gonna convert in the next lesson this simple class into an actual mixin. So we're gonna create a nice mixin for our keyframe animation. That is what we're using right now. So right now, let's call just simply at keyframe spin curly brackets. We can start with from, and from we wanna transform, rotate. Let's start with 0 degrees, rotate except a degrees variable, a degrees attribute. So let's put 0 degrees, and let's go to transform, of course, again, rotate, and the declaration is 360 degrees. So we are saying that we want a complete full circle from to in this keyframe animation. The keyframe animation should be declared as many times as all these stuff, like for WebKit derivation and Moz derivation, Microsoft derivation, Opera derivation, and so on, so on. But we're not going to do that right now. We're going to do it in the next lesson when we're going to optimize this keyframe. We're going to create the actual mixing, Sass mixing of a keyframe animation. For now, we're going to just leave it like that. Really simple. So now we have this keyframe animation called spin. If we go back in our sunset file, we can call a class called spin that for declaration is gonna have the animation dash name. We have to call the animation that we just created, that it's called spin, of course. We can declare a lot of other options. If you see here in my autocomplete, if I write animation, we have a lot of options. So first of all, let's declare the animation duration, that is the actual, like, how long it's gonna take to this animation to go from 0 to 100, so to be completed. And I want to go 320 milliseconds as well, because as I said, let's keep the speed consistent. Let's declare also the animation iteration count. Here we can specify how many times the animation has to loop. So if we want the animation to spin, or the icon to spin just one, it's just 0.1. If we want a 5 times, 0.5. Or if we want to keep going until we have this class apply, let's put just infinite. So it's gonna keep spinning, spinning, spinning. And then we can also declare the animation timing function. This has to be a spinning, a constant spinning without stopping and go, without weird interaction. So let's declare a linear animation. I suggest you to experiment with this animation timing function and have all ease in, ease out, or the cubic Bezier with all the options. But we're gonna do that in future lessons to experiment more with this animation. And that's it. Let's save it. Let's go back in our front end. Let's refresh and let's click load more, and whoa, that's amazing. That's kind of fast. So let's improve a little bit. Let's do it dynamically here. Let's, instead of 300 milliseconds, let's go maybe the double 620. Let's increase 2, 3 times, loading. And of course, you can see like our icon is not fully centered, so we have this like wobbling, weird spinning stuff, but let's go 1 second, 1,000 milliseconds. So yes, okay, let's say that it's kind of good for now. So let's update this to 1 second at 1,000 milliseconds, and let's go here, let's refresh, click, load. It's loading, nice. So now we have pretty much everything. This is not clickable, the load more, it's gone completely, and it's loading, it's having an animation, so it's giving the user a response, an interaction. It's something that is happening in the background, and the user, it's obvious for the user that his action is causing some reaction. So now what we have to do, we have to update again the sunset.js, our JavaScript file, to remove all this stuff and revert the button to its original position. So first of all, let's remove class loading. Then let's search again. Let's find again inside this class text, and let's slide down with the same speed to reveal again the text. And again, let's do that find, and let's find our usual sunset icon. And also in this case, we want to remove class. Let's remove this class spin. Save it. Let's go back here. Of course, it's gonna happen in like, yeah, we don't have even a full spin. So that it's kind of good. It means that our loading is super fast and it's a good interaction, but probably at least we should have a little bit of interaction for the user. We should show him that it's smooth, it's a smooth process, it's not too fast, too snappy, because he could miss that interaction, or he could see like half of this transition. That could be kind of weird. So what we can do, we can delay after the adding of this stuff. We could delay the remove of all these animation and transition by setting a timeout with the function set timeout. The set timeout function is a JavaScript function, it's not jQuery, that gives us the ability to write whatever code we want here and whatever delay we want as a second attribute. So first of all, let's open a function, an empty function with simple brackets and then curly brackets. And inside this function, let's cut and paste all our code to update our options. Let's remove this delay option here. Let's create a little bit of space so it's more clear. And here, as a second attribute, after the closing of the curly brackets and a comma, we have to specify the waiting time, also in this case in millisecond, before triggering this function. And I want to wait at least 1 second. Probably I'm going to increase it because 1 second is really like quick. So let's do this. Let's refresh. Click 1 second. And load more. Perfect. Of course, I am going to the bottom, so you don't see it, but the user doesn't see it because there's this animation. But in the case the user is fixed to the bottom, it's gonna see this animation and then the revert of the transition, the reappearance of the load more, and the button is already clickable. So this is a nice interaction. So it's pretty much it for today's lesson. This was a super quick lesson, but we did a nice implementation of JavaScript and a bit of CSS. In the next lesson, we're gonna polish a little bit more this interaction. We're gonna create a nice transition and a nice revealing transition for the new blog posts that have been dynamically loaded by our Ajax function. And we're gonna solve all the other finicky stuff that we have, like the non-working carousel by default. And we're gonna take care also of the not really mixing the keyframes animation that we created. We're gonna create a proper mixing. It's gonna take a while, but we have to create for all these other browsers derivation that we have in order to be fully functional and fully usable on every different browsers. So thank you again guys for checking this video. Hope you enjoyed. If you did, please give it a thumbs up or subscribe to my channel, and if you want, you can spend a couple of minutes to check the support me page on my website, where you can find all different ways and methods to support me, support my channel, and help me to do better videos and better tutorials for you. Thank you again guys, and until the next lesson, as usual, happy coding!